So last weekend I visited the Telfar, the new Telfar shop down in downtown Manhattan, and Telfar Clemens is a queer Liberian American black designer, and his platform is mainly he wants financial, racial, and gender inclusivity and community in the fashion industry. And he really blew up during COVID. And so I just wanted, of course, to bring him to the foreground. But more than that, I wanted to address fashion, the role of fashion in our lives. So if you watch my second video on the runaway enslaved people from upstate New York, you would have heard me talk about how how the ancestors used the masters and mistresses' clothing when they were running away. They took them with them as a tool of liberation because, of course, the people in the society had an idea that freedom and had masters had a certain kind of clothing and free people looked a certain kind of way. Of course, because the ancestors didn't have access to the resources that came from working. Their income was stolen, so they couldn't buy clothing. So they took it as a tool to prove that, hey, I'm free. But there's no way you can admire someone and run away from them at the same time. So by the act of them fleeing the master, they are not trying to emulate the master in any way or the mistress. They just wanted the clothing as a tool. That was the only way to get themselves free. And they're going to use it by any means necessary. They're going to get out. So I guess my concern is not that all black people should now start wearing dashikis and pumping our fists and say, I'm black, y'all, I'm black, y'all. Although that would be really fun for me because I like that kind of thing. But my concern is about being critical consumers of clothing. So, for example, Telfar, he has been given awards by PETA because he uses recycled material. And there's a big concern about fashion dumping. Most of the dumping of clothing, this clothing is sent and discarded in places like Accra, Ghana. So again, steal the people and now dump trash onto Africa. And they're finding ways to try to do upcycling and using it in fashion, but it's just too much unnecessary cheap clothing that we wear lots of it and discard it. So I guess part of the desire for me is for us to think about that, and that's not for you alone, for me, because I love sales and stuff. So you think I just need that one more t-shirt, but do I really just need that one more t-shirt? Maybe not. Another thing for people who can afford to purchase clothing based on brands is, what does the brand I'm choosing signify? Like when I choose something like Telfar, I'm signifying that I believe in the values of inclusivity. I believe I want to support a black person. I believe in trying to wrestle that power out of the monopoly that controls it, and that everybody should have a place in fashion. So that's what I'm signifying. Also, my acceptance of his queerness. So I'm signifying all of that by purchasing the bag. And the third thing is, are the brands supporting you? I went down into the store, and the people who were selling the things, cashing the things, there were people looked like me, queer people. There are all kinds of different kind of people there that said, this is, you're welcome here. So if people who look like me can't get jobs there, I really should not be supporting them. So I guess it comes to me where the main concern for me is sometimes clothing evidence, or clothing choice evidence of internalized racism. Do we actually aspire to be perceived as massa, and trying to separate ourselves from the positive black identity that comes from being descended from enslaved people. And if that's the place that you're in, that you want to look as close to mass as possible to get some kind of acceptance into Euroness, my thing is that part of the reason why they don't want race critical theory and an accurate history of the US being taught in schools is simply the fact that when the facts are stacked up together, it is better to be a descendant of an enslaved person than to be a descendant of an enslaver. Because in that story, the villain is the person who enslaves another human being, who knows that person was a human being because frequently they had sex with them and had children with them. So there was no ifs, ands, and buts. Different species cannot procreate. That's the definitive things. That people who engage in bestiality with animals, they never procreate with them because that's impossible. They're not the same species. So they knew the people they were enslaving were human. They knew they did not like to be enslaved because they were running away, because they were saying no, because they were resisting, because anyone of conscience knows that no one wants to be enslaved. So yeah, they knew. So in these stories, it's who are the villains and why are you trying to disassociate yourself, if you are, from that history of enslavement? Because that is the seed of our greatness. It's like a phoenix rising from ashes to tell this beautiful story of what we have today, that we overcame like the worst odds and we're still standing. So again, I always welcome your feedback. Thanks for listening.